You're
7
under
months
arrest.
pregnant.
Arms behind
Christmas
your back.
Eve.
Charlotte,
Bags
how
packed
could you
for the
do
flight
this?
home to see her family.
Enjoy prison, Harrison.
Then the phone call that shattered everything.
Shh, look at me.
I am sorry, Mrs. Brennan.
gonna be fine.
Your seat has been reassigned. Her
How
husband's
can it be
private
fine?
jet
We're
was already in the
ruined.
air. Flying
We
to
are
Aspen,
following a
not
developing
Tokyo,
story high
where
in
he
the
claimed to
mountains.
have urgent
A massive
business
search
meetings.
and rescue
And he was
operation
not
is
alone.
underway for
Charlotte
Harrison
checked the
Brennan and
credit
Vivian
card
Cross.
statements.
I don't understand
Designer
what you're implying,
lingerie,
Charlotte.
eyes 4.
Don't play
She was a
games,
size
Harrison.
10.
We know you did
A
this.
Cartier bracelet.
seems quite confused,
champagne,
dear.
And then a pregnancy test. She was already 7 months pregnant. Why would her husband buy another pregnancy test? Before she could confront him, the news alert flashed across her screen. Private jet crashes in Rocky Mountains. The CEO Harrison Brennan among passengers. 2 bodies recovered, her husband and his mistress. But the crash was only the beginning. What Charlotte discovered next would destroy everything she thought she knew about her marriage. Her fortune, her sanity, and her own body. This is a story of betrayal, survival, and the terrifying strength a woman finds when she has nothing left to lose. Stay with me until the end, because the twist at minute 72, nobody sees it coming. 6 months ago, I was decorating a nursery, painting the walls pale yellow, hanging a mobile of silver stars above a crib I had assembled myself, planning Christmas with my family in Vermont, believing in my marriage, believing in my husband, believing in a future that existed only in my imagination. Now I am sitting in a room with no sharp objects. The walls are white, the bed is bolted to the floor. The window has bars that they call safety features, but we all know what they really are. Outside, snow falls over the Connecticut countryside, soft and silent, mocking me with its peace. My name is Charlotte Murphy Brennan. I am 32 years old. 6 months ago, I was 7 months pregnant with my first child. I was married to Harrison Brennan, tech billionaire, CEO of Brennan Technologies, a man whose face appeared on magazine covers and whose name commanded respect in boardrooms across the country. Now Harrison has my daughter. He has my freedom. He has my reputation. And according to the doctors who visit me twice daily with their clipboards and their careful questions, he very nearly has my sanity. But here's the thing about men like Harrison. They always underestimate the women they discard. They assume that because they have broken us, we will stay broken. They forget that some things, when shattered, become sharper. I'm going to tell you what really happened, not the version that appeared in newspapers, not the story Harrison fed to the media with his practiced grief and his convincing amnesia. The truth, all of it, because somewhere out there, another woman is noticing things about her husband that do not add up. She is telling herself she is paranoid. She is dismissing her instincts because he makes her feel crazy for having them. I was that woman, and I almost died because of it. This is my story. It begins on Christmas Eve in a Manhattan penthouse I never felt at home in, with a phone call that shattered everything I thought I knew. The snow was falling in thick curtains outside the floor-to-ceiling windows when my phone rang. I was standing in the middle of the penthouse, 7 months pregnant, my suitcase packed and waiting by the door. In 3 hours, I would be on Harrison's private jet, flying to Vermont to spend Christmas with my brother Declan and his family. My first Christmas as an expectant mother. My last Christmas before everything changed. I did not know then how right that thought would prove to be. The number on the screen belonged to Atlantic Charter Services, the company that managed Harrison's Gulfstream. I answered expecting a confirmation of my departure time. Instead, I got the first crack in the foundation of my life. I am sorry, Mrs. Brennan. The voice was professional, female, carefully neutral. Your seat on the charter has been reassigned by the primary account holder. I stood frozen, my hand moving instinctively to my swollen belly. I do not understand. There must be a mistake. No mistake, ma'am. The reassignment was processed this morning at 9:15. The aircraft departed at 11:42. My mind refused to process the words. Departed. The flight was not scheduled until 4 in the afternoon. Harrison had promised to see me off before leaving for his business trip to Tokyo. Emergency board meetings, he had explained, with that apologetic smile I knew so well. 4 days of unavoidable obligations. He had kissed my forehead and called me his good girl for understanding. The departure time was changed, Mrs. Brennan. I am very sorry for the inconvenience. I hung up without saying goodbye. My fingers were trembling as I dialed Harrison's number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. His smooth, professional voice filled my ear like a mockery of intimacy. "You have reached Harrison Brennan. Leave a message." I tried again. Same result. I called his assistant, Patricia. Voicemail. The penthouse suddenly felt enormous. 42 floors above the city, surrounded by furniture I had never chosen, and art I did not understand. I was utterly alone. The Christmas tree in the corner blinked with programmed precision. Red, green, gold. Red, green, gold. The mechanical cheerfulness made me want to scream. My hands found my phone again, this time opening the flight tracker app Harrison had installed months ago. A small gesture of transparency he had called out it. "So you can always know where I am, darling." It had seemed thoughtful at the time. Now I wondered what it really was. I typed in the tail number of his Gulfstream and watched the screen load. A small airplane icon appeared, moving across the digital map. Current location, somewhere over Pennsylvania. Destination, Aspen, Colorado, not Tokyo. Harrison had told me he had emergency board meetings in Tokyo, December 23rd through the 27th, 4 days of unavoidable business. But the jet was flying to Aspen. My heart began to pound. I checked his shared calendar, the one he kept updated for my peace of mind. Tokyo board meetings, 4 days of obligations. The lies stared back at me in neat digital blocks. I dialed the Aspen house before I could talk myself out of it. We had purchased the ski chalet 2 years ago. A wedding gift to ourselves, Harrison had called it. I had been there exactly 3 times. The housekeeper answered on the second ring. "Brennan residence. Loretta." My voice was steadier than I expected. "This is Mrs. Brennan." "Oh, Mrs. Brennan." Confusion colored her tone. "We were not expecting you." "Mr. Brennan said he was bringing a business colleague. Should I prepare your room as well?" The floor shifted beneath my feet. A business colleague. "Yes, ma'am. He called yesterday to arrange everything. Fresh flowers in the master suite, champagne on ice. The works, fresh flowers, champagne, for a business colleague." Did he mention the colleague's name? A pause. "No, ma'am. Just that it was someone from the company." "Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine, Loretta. I will call back later." I ended the call and sank onto the edge of our bed. The California King with the 800 thread count sheets that Harrison insisted upon. The bed where we had conceived this baby, or so I had believed. My hands were shaking as I opened the browser on my phone, Cybermoon. I did not want to do what I was about to do. I had spent 3 years telling myself that trust was the foundation of marriage. That jealousy was poison. That Harrison worked hard and traveled often, and that was simply the life of a successful man's wife. But flowers and champagne were not business expenses, and Tokyo was not Aspen. I logged into our joint credit card account, the one Harrison used for household expenses. I scrolled through the charges with growing dread. Grocery delivery, dry cleaning, the decorator who had chosen all the furniture I never liked. Nothing unusual. I hesitated. Then I retrieved the manila folder from Harrison's filing cabinet, the one with account numbers and passwords for everything. His version of trust, he had called it when he gave it to me after our wedding. Access without intimacy. I logged into his personal American Express, the black card, the one I never looked at because I trusted him. The charges loaded, and my world fell apart. The first charge that caught my eye was from Aspen Mountain Boutique. December 9th, $3,400. Women's apparel. I clicked on the itemized receipt. My stomach dropped. Size 4. I was a size 10. Had been a size 10 even before pregnancy. I was tall, broad-shouldered, built like the swimmer I had been in college. I had never been a size 4 in my life. I kept scrolling. More charges appeared, a jewelry store, a lingerie boutique, a spa, and then, buried among purchases from 2 weeks ago, something that made my blood run cold. Aspen Family Pharmacy, December 11th, $14.99. The item description was clinical, impersonal. Home pregnancy test. I stared at the words until they blurred. I was 7 months pregnant. I had not needed a pregnancy test in over 6 months. Harrison had been with me when I took my test. He had held my hand while we waited for the result. He had cried when the second line appeared. Why would he buy another pregnancy test? My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Sam. Just landed at JFK, ready for Vermont tomorrow. How are you feeling? I could not answer. I could not form words. I sat there frozen as the truth I had spent 3 years avoiding finally caught up with me. My husband was having an affair. The pregnancy test was not for me. It was for someone else. Someone who wore size 4. Someone who was receiving flowers and champagne in our ski chalet while I sat alone in our penthouse, pregnant with his child. I do not know how long I sat there. Minutes, maybe an hour. The snow kept falling. The Christmas tree kept blinking. The city hummed 42 floors below. Finally, I picked up my phone and called Sam. She answered immediately. Charlie, please tell me you are already on your way to Vermont. Declan has been driving everyone crazy checking the weather reports. Sam, my voice cracked. Something is wrong. The lightness vanished from her tone. What happened? Is it the baby? No, the baby's fine. It is Harrison. Tell me. So I told her. The canceled flight, the jet tracker, Aspen instead of Tokyo, fresh flowers and champagne for a business colleague who wore size 4 and needed a pregnancy test. Sam listened without interrupting. When I finished, silence stretched between us. Get your laptop, Sam finally said. Right now. What? Your laptop? Get it. Open it. We are going through everything. Sam, I cannot just... Charlie, Sam's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. He canceled your flight on Christmas Eve while you are 7 months pregnant. While you are supposed to be flying home to see your family, he took his private jet to a ski chalet with champagne and flowers for someone else. You can absolutely just... Sam arrived 40 minutes later with Thai food, a bottle of sparkling cider, and fury barely contained beneath her calm exterior. Eat, she commanded, unpacking containers onto the kitchen island. You are growing a human. You need calories. I cannot eat. You can. You will. The baby does not care about Harrison's nonsense. The baby wants noodles. I managed a few bites. The food tasted like cardboard, but Sam watched me like a hawk until I finished half the container. Then she opened her laptop. Sam was a forensic accountant by trade. Numbers were her native language. Deception left fingerprints. She knew how to find them. Let us start at the beginning, she said. When did you and Harrison get married? 3 years ago, August 15th. And when did you start noticing things were off? I opened my mouth to answer and then stopped. When had things been off? Had things ever been on? I do not know, I admitted. I thought we were happy. Sam's expression softened. Happy wives do not hesitate when asked that question. Think, Charlie. When was the first time something felt wrong? I thought back, past the pregnancy announcement, past the move to the penthouse, past the wedding. Our honeymoon, I said slowly. He took a call on our honeymoon from someone at work. They talked for over an hour. I could hear a woman's voice on the other end. Did you ask him about it? He said it was a new vice president, someone he was mentoring. He said it was nothing. Sam typed something into her laptop. Do you remember the name? The name surfaced from somewhere deep in my memory. Vivian Cross. Sam's fingers flew across the keyboard. A moment later, she turned the screen toward me, a LinkedIn profile. A professional headshot of a woman with sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. Vivian Cross, Vice President of Operations, Brennan Technologies. I studied the photo. I had met this woman before. At the engagement party, at the wedding, at company events where I stood beside Harrison and smiled until my face ached. Vivian had always been perfectly polite, perfectly professional. And at our engagement party, she had raised her champagne glass and offered a toast that suddenly took on new meaning. To Harrison, she had said, who always gets exactly what he wants. Everyone had laughed. I had laughed too. But Vivian had not been laughing. Her eyes had been fixed on Harrison, and Harrison had looked away first. She gave a toast at our engagement party, I told Sam. She said Harrison always gets what he wants. Sam's jaw tightened. Let us look at his corporate card. I should not have access to that, but you do. And right now, we need answers more than we need permission. The corporate card told a different story. Business dinners became romantic dinners for two. Client entertainment became spa days for couples. Travel expenses included hotel suites with only one occupant listed, but charges for room service that suggested otherwise. The trail went back 18 months, before the wedding, before the pregnancy. He was with her when he proposed to me, I said. The realization landed like a physical blow. Sam reached across the table and took my hand. Why did he marry me if he was already with her? I asked. Why bother? Sam's answer was gentle but unflinching. Because men like Harrison do not marry their mistresses. They marry women like you. Respectable, accomplished, good on paper. They keep the mistress for excitement and the wife for appearances. I pulled my hand away. I am not an appearance. No, you are not. But Harrison treated you like one. The question now is what you are going to do about it. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something made me look. Something made me read the headline scrolling across my screen. Breaking news. Private jet crashes in Rocky Mountains. Tech CEO Harrison Brennan among passengers. I read the words 3 times. They did not make sense. They could not make sense. Sam grabbed the phone from my trembling hands. Her face went white. Oh my God, she breathed. I sat in silence, unable to process what I was seeing. My husband was possibly dead, on a mountainside, with his mistress, and I felt absolutely nothing. The news coverage was relentless. Every channel carried the story. Footage of search helicopters circling snowy peaks. Grave-faced anchors speaking in somber tones about the tragic loss of a visionary businessman. The Gulf Stream went down approximately 40 miles from Aspen during a sudden storm, one anchor reported. Search and rescue teams are en route, but conditions remain severe. Visibility is near zero. I watched the footage from my living room couch, Sam beside me, my hand on my belly. The baby kicked once, twice, as if she too understood that everything had changed. 2 passengers have been confirmed on the flight manifest, the anchor continued. CEO Harrison Brennan of Brennan Technologies and company executive Vivian Cross. Miss Cross served as vice president of operations. Their photographs appeared side by side on screen. Harrison in a professional headshot, confident and handsome. The face I had woken up next to for 3 years. Vivian in her LinkedIn photo, sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. The woman who had raised a glass to Harrison getting exactly what he wanted. Sam muted the television. Charlie, look at me. How are you feeling? I turned the question over in my mind. How was I feeling? The man I had married was dead on a mountainside with his mistress, the night before Christmas. I should feel something, I said. Should I not feel something? There is no should. Whatever you are feeling is valid. I feel hollow, like someone scooped out my insides and forgot to put anything back. Sam took my hand. That is shock. Your body is protecting you from too much at once. The phone call started within the hour. Harrison's mother, Nora, was first. Hysterical, demanding, accusatory. Had I heard from him? Had there been any warning? Why was I not on the plane with him? I answered carefully. I knew nothing. I had no warning. I was not on the plane because my seat had been reassigned. Reassigned? Nora's voice turned suspicious. What do you mean reassigned? I mean someone else took my place. The silence on the other end was heavy with calculation. Nora Brennan was many things, but stupid was not one of them. 2 passengers, Harrison and Vivian. No room for the pregnant wife. We will discuss this later, she said, and hung up. More calls followed. Board members, lawyers, business partners, everyone wanted information. No one offered comfort. By noon, the news confirmed what I already knew. 2 bodies recovered. Harrison James Brennan and Vivian Marie Cross, positively identified. My husband was dead. I waited for grief. For relief, for anger, for anything. Instead, there was only that echoing emptiness. Declan arrived that evening, having driven through a snowstorm to reach me. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug that lasted 5 full minutes. I have got you, he murmured into my hair. Whatever happens, I have got you. I let myself be held, let myself feel small and safe for just a moment. My big brother had always been my rock. Even when our parents died in a car accident when I was 15. Even when I made the terrible mistake of marrying Harrison Brennan. Declan had tried to warn me. I had not listened. He was too kind to say I told you so. He just held me and let me cry. The next few days passed in a blur of legal proceedings and media inquiries. I played the role of the grieving widow, appearing at the memorial service in black, accepting condolences with appropriate sorrow. But inside I was calculating. Harrison's will left everything to me: the penthouse, the company shares, the offshore accounts I was only beginning to discover. The estate was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I should have been devastated. Instead, I was planning. I would sell the penthouse, move to Vermont near Declan, raise my daughter in a place where the air was clean and people said what they meant, build a life that was finally, truly mine. For the first time in 3 years, I could breathe. And then, 5 days after the crash, everything changed again. But yet, I was in the nursery when Sam called. The room I had decorated myself without Harrison's input or interference. Pale yellow walls, a rocking chair he had called suburban, but allowed because it made me happy. A mobile of silver stars I had hung myself. My one sanctuary in a home that had never felt like mine. Charlie, Sam's voice was strange, tight, controlled. Turn on the news. Now. I walked to the living room and picked up the remote. The screen filled with breaking news graphics and the excited face of a reporter standing outside a hospital in Colorado. In what can only be described as a Christmas miracle, tech CEO Harrison Brennan has been found alive in the Rocky Mountain wilderness. Brennan, who was presumed dead in a plane crash 5 days ago, was discovered by a hiking group approximately 3 miles from the crash site. He is currently being treated for exposure and what doctors are describing as traumatic brain injury. Remarkably, he has no memory of the crash or the events leading up to it. I could not move, could not breathe, could not process the words coming through the speakers. Harrison was alive. Harrison was alive, could not remember anything. Harrison was coming home. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I followed it, sinking to my knees on the expensive carpet Harrison had chosen without asking my opinion. My husband had come back from the dead, and somehow that was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Yet. He arrived at the penthouse 3 days later. Nora brought him, having flown to Colorado to personally oversee his recovery. She swept into my home like she owned it, which in her mind, she probably did. Harrison walked behind her, moving carefully, a bandage on his forehead and confusion in his eyes. Charlotte, he said my name like he was testing it, seeing if it fit. I am sorry. They tell me we are married, but I cannot seem to remember. His voice was the same, his face was the same, but something in his eyes was different, empty. Or perhaps it was exactly the same, and I was only now seeing it clearly. It is all right, I heard myself say. The doctors said the memory loss is temporary. You have been through a trauma. He smiled, that charming smile that had convinced me to marry him, to give up my career, to become the perfect corporate wife. Yes, a trauma. He paused. They tell me someone else was on the plane with me, a colleague, Vivian Cross. I watched his face carefully. Your vice president of operations. Nothing, not a flicker of recognition, not a hint of guilt. I am told she died. His voice was appropriately somber. How terrible. Were we close? The audacity of the question took my breath away. Were they close? They had been lovers for at least 18 months. She had been pregnant with his child. They had been planning to kill me. You worked together, I said carefully. She was very dedicated. He nodded thoughtfully. How sad. I wish I could remember her. He was lying. I knew it with absolute certainty. The amnesia was a performance. He remembered everything. But how could I prove it? The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Harrison played the confused victim perfectly. He wandered the penthouse like a stranger, touching objects with curious fingers, asking innocent questions about our life together. He submitted to medical examinations with patient grace. He gave interviews to sympathetic reporters, speaking movingly about his lost memories and his determination to rebuild. And the public ate it up. Hero CEO survives crash, mourns colleague. The headlines painted him as a tragic figure, a man who had lost so much and was fighting to recover. His stock price actually rose on the sympathy. Meanwhile, I became the villain. It started subtly, a reporter asking why I had not been on the plane with my husband, a comment section wondering if the pregnant wife had known about the affair before the crash, whispers at the memorial service suggesting I seemed a little too composed for a woman who had nearly lost everything. Nora fanned the flames with expert precision. She moved into our guest room to help Harrison recover, she explained. But her real purpose was surveillance. She monitored my calls, intercepted my mail, reported my every movement to a network of society friends who suddenly found me very interesting to discuss. The walls closed in around me. I was trapped in my own home with the man who had planned to kill me, unable to prove anything, unable to escape. Sam and Declan visited when they could, but Nora made their presence increasingly difficult. Family only, she would say with a poisonous smile. Charlotte needs rest. We cannot have strangers upsetting her in her condition. Sam was not a stranger, neither was Declan, but somehow the narrative had shifted. I was the delicate pregnant woman who needed to be protected. They were outsiders who might fill my head with dangerous ideas. I began to doubt my own sanity. Maybe I had imagined the credit card statements. Maybe the pregnancy test had been for something else. Maybe Vivian really had been just a colleague. Maybe I was the crazy one. And then, 2 weeks after his miraculous return, Harrison dropped his mask. It happened late at night. Nora had gone to bed. The penthouse was dark and silent. I was in the nursery, unable to sleep, rocking in the suburban chair and talking to my unborn daughter about the world I hoped to give her. I did not hear him approach until his voice came from the doorway. "You went through my accounts," he said. I froze. The rocking chair went still. Harrison stepped into the room. The confused patient was gone. In his place stood the man I had married. Cold, calculating, absolutely in control. "You talk to Margaret. You think you are clever, do you not? Good girl." The words landed like blows. Good girl. The phrase he always used when I obeyed, when I submitted, when I performed my role to his satisfaction. "Your memory came back," I said. It was not a question. He smiled, that charming smile now sharp as a blade. "My memory never left. Do you know how boring it was, pretending not to remember? But the doctors kept testing me and I had to be consistent. A small price to pay for public sympathy." He moved closer. I pressed back in the chair, my hand on my belly. "Vivian is dead because of you," he continued. "Everything we built together, gone. And for what? Because you could not stay blind like a good wife should?" I found my voice. "You were planning to kill me." Harrison laughed. Soft, chilling. Kill is such an ugly word. We preferred to think of it as a transition. You would have a tragic accident after the birth. Something with the stairs, perhaps. Very sad. Very convenient. And our daughter would have gone to a mother who actually deserved her. Our daughter. The words made me sick. You were going to give my baby to Vivian. She could not have children of her own. He shrugged as if we were discussing a business transaction. And you were such a perfect incubator. Healthy, young, no genetic defects. We chose you very carefully, Charlotte. Chose me like I was livestock, like I was a product to be evaluated and purchased. "I will tell everyone," I said, "what you just told me. I will tell the police." Harrison shook his head, still smiling. "Tell them what? I am the sympathetic survivor, the man with amnesia who is trying to rebuild his life. You are the bitter wife who has been spreading paranoid conspiracy theories since the crash. Who do you think they will believe?" He was right. I knew he was right. My truth sounded like lies. His lies sounded like truth. "Here is what is going to happen," he said. "You are going to be a good girl. You are going to file for the cameras and play the supportive wife. You are going to have our daughter in a hospital I choose with doctors I select. And then we will discuss your future. And if I refuse?" His eyes went flat. "Empty. Then I will have you committed. Pregnancy psychosis. Very common, very tragic. The courts will give me full custody, and you will spend the rest of your life in a facility wondering where it all went wrong." He turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the nursery with my terror and my rage. I sat there for a long time, shaking, my hand on my belly as my daughter kicked against my palm. I had been right about all of it. Harrison remembered everything. The affair, the fraud, the plan to kill me. And now I was trapped with him, unable to prove anything, watching my window of escape close day by day. But here is something Harrison did not know about me. Something he had never bothered to learn. Before I became his wife, before I became the perfect corporate accessory, I was Charlotte Murphy. I had graduated summa cum laude from Columbia Law School. I had worked 80-hour weeks at a white shoe firm. I had won cases that partners twice my age thought were impossible. I had given all that up for Harrison. Let it atrophy. Let him convince me that my ambition was unattractive, my intelligence intimidating, my career unnecessary for a woman with a wealthy husband. But skills do not disappear. They hibernate, and mine were waking up. Harrison wanted a war. Fine, I would give him one. The next morning, I made a phone call from a burner phone Sam had smuggled to me. Margaret Brennan answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you would call, she said. Her voice was warm, cautious, nothing like the rest of the Brennan family. I saw the news coverage. I know Harrison is lying. How do you know? Because I have been watching him lie for 40 years. She paused. I have files, Charlotte. Documents. Evidence of every dirty deal the Brennan family has made since Harrison's father started the company. I have been waiting for someone brave enough to use them. Why me? Because you are the first wife who ever fought back. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, neutral territory. Sam drove me there while Nora believed I was napping. Margaret was already waiting when I arrived. A woman in her mid-60s with silver hair and kind eyes that looked nothing like the rest of the Brennans, because she was not really one of them anymore. She had been erased from the family 20 years ago for trying to report Harrison's father for financial crimes. The family chose money over truth, she explained. They always do, but I never stopped watching, never stopped collecting evidence. I knew someday it would matter. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs, documents, bank statements, a paper trail of fraud that went back decades and led directly to Harrison's door. Vivian was not just his mistress, Margaret said. She was his partner in everything. The fraud started when she joined the company. She helped him hide the money, set up offshore accounts, created shell companies. She was the architect. Harrison was just the face. I studied the documents, account numbers in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers to phantom corporations, the kind of evidence that sent people to prison. There is something else, Margaret continued, something you need to know. She pulled out a photograph. Harrison and Vivian in a jewelry store. Vivian trying on rings. Harrison watching with an expression I had never seen on his face when he looked at me. Love. This was taken 6 months ago, Margaret said, just before you announced your pregnancy. 6 months ago. While I was planning our baby's nursery, Harrison had been shopping for engagement rings. For another woman. She was going to replace you completely, Margaret said gently. The plan was in motion before you ever suspected anything. If that plane had not crashed, I would be dead. The word hung in the air between us. Yes, Margaret said, I believe so. I looked at the evidence spread across the table. Enough to destroy Harrison. Enough to send him to prison. Enough to take back everything he had stolen from me. What do I do with this? Margaret smiled. It was a warrior's smile. You build your case, brick by brick, and when you are ready, you burn his empire to the ground. The next few weeks were a delicate dance. On the surface, I was the dutiful wife, attending Harrison's medical appointments, smiling for the cameras, playing my role to perfection. But behind the scenes, I was building an arsenal. Sam traced the offshore accounts, following money through a maze of shell corporations to hidden caches in the Caribbean. Declan provided safe haven when I needed to escape the penthouse, letting me work from his Vermont home on weekends when I claimed I needed family time. And through Margaret, I made contact with FBI Special Agent Gloria Patterson. Gloria was a no-nonsense woman in her mid-40s who had spent 2 decades putting white-collar criminals behind bars. She listened to my story without interrupting, reviewed the evidence without comment, and then leaned back in her chair with a slow smile. Your husband is not as smart as he thinks he is, she said. None of them are. The investigation began quietly. Subpoenas issued under seal. Witnesses interviewed in secret. Evidence accumulated like snowflakes in a blizzard, each one insignificant alone, together building into an avalanche. Harrison noticed nothing. He was too busy managing his public image, giving interviews about his recovery, positioning himself as a sympathetic figure for the inevitable book deal. He had no idea I was the one writing his ending. By March, the case was nearly complete. Gloria called me with news that made my heart soar. We are ready to move. Arrest warrants are being prepared. It is over, Charlotte. Over. The word tasted like freedom. That night, for the first time in months, I let myself hope. Sam came over with sparkling cider, and we sat in the nursery, picking out names for my daughter, laughing about nothing and everything. I should have known it would not last. The next morning, I woke to chaos. News vans outside the building, my phone exploding with notifications, headlines screaming across every screen. Billionaire's wife accused of murder conspiracy, evidence of affair with husband's business partner. Was the grieving widow the real villain all along? Nora had struck first. The evidence against me was devastating in its completeness. Text messages between me and James Calloway, Harrison's business partner, describing our alleged affair in explicit detail. I had never sent those messages. I had barely spoken to James Calloway. Photographs showing us together in compromising positions. The images were convincing. They were also completely fabricated. Photoshop had become terrifyingly good. Witness statements from household staff, drivers, personal assistants, all claiming to have seen things that never happened, all paid handsomely for their lies. And the narrative Nora spun was perfect in its simplicity. Charlotte Murphy had married Harrison for his money. When she discovered his affair with Vivian, she had not been heartbroken. She had been furious. So she had conspired with James Calloway, a man she was secretly sleeping with, to kill her husband and his mistress, making it look like an accident. The plane crash was not a tragedy. It was attempted murder, and Charlotte Murphy was the mastermind. The police arrived on Christmas morning, exactly 1 year after the call that had started everything. They found me in the nursery, 8.5 months pregnant, surrounded by baby clothes I had been folding. Charlotte Murphy Brennan? The detective's voice was professionally neutral. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. They let me change out of my pajamas. A small mercy. Then they put handcuffs on my wrists, in front because of my belly, and led me past the Christmas tree I had decorated for my daughter, past Harrison, who watched from the doorway with a satisfied smile, past Nora, who did not bother to hide her triumph. The cameras were waiting outside. Of course they were. Nora had made sure of that. Charlotte, did you try to kill your husband? Charlotte, are you guilty? Charlotte, do you have anything to say? I had nothing to say. Nothing they would believe. Nothing that would not be twisted into more evidence of my guilt. The ride to the police station took forever. The booking process took longer. Fingerprints. Photographs. Forms filled out in triplicate while I fought back tears and tried not to think about what was happening to my baby. My lawyer, Ted Whitmore, arrived within the hour. He had been my father's attorney, the man I trusted most in the world outside my family. I did not know then that he had betrayed me. Do not say anything, he advised. Do not talk to anyone. I will have you out of here by morning. But morning came and went. The judge denied bail. Flight risk, he said, danger to the community. The pregnant wife who had tried to murder her billionaire husband could not be trusted. I was transferred to a holding facility, a cell with a cot and a toilet and walls that pressed in from every side. I was 8 months pregnant, accused of a crime I did not commit, and utterly alone. That was when my body decided it had had enough. The contractions started at 2 in the morning. At first, I thought it was stress, just cramping, just my body protesting its circumstances. But the pains grew stronger, closer together, more insistent. Something is wrong, I told the guard. Something is wrong with my baby. They transferred me to the hospital in shackles. Shackles on my wrists and ankles while I screamed through contractions and begged someone to help me. The labor was fast and brutal. 4 hours of agony, 4 hours of terror, 4 hours of praying that my daughter would survive even if I did not. And then at 6:47 in the morning, she arrived, screaming, perfect, alive. They placed her on my chest for exactly 30 seconds. I looked into her eyes, my mother's eyes, and felt my heart crack open. Eleanor, I whispered. Her name is Eleanor. Then they took her away, put her in the NICU because she was premature, told me I could not hold her, could not touch her, could not be a mother to my own child. I screamed until they sedated me. When I woke, things were worse. Harrison had filed an emergency petition, claimed I was mentally unstable, danger to myself and my baby, used my paranoid accusations as evidence. Nora testified that I had been erratic for months. The judge granted temporary custody to Harrison. And while I lay in a hospital bed, still bleeding from childbirth, they transferred me to a psychiatric facility in Connecticut. My daughter went home with the man who had tried to kill me. The psychiatric facility was called Serenity Hills, a cruel name for a place designed to make you feel anything but serene. My room had white walls, a bed bolted to the floor, and a window with bars they called safety features. Doctors visited twice a day with clipboards and careful questions. They asked about my mood, my thoughts, whether I was having any delusions about my husband. I told them the truth. Harrison was a fraud. Harrison had planned to kill me. Harrison was not a victim. He was a monster. They wrote it down, made notes, adjusted my medications. The truth, it turned out, sounded exactly like the delusions of a mentally ill woman. Days passed, then weeks. I measured time by the visits from Sam and Declan, who came every other day despite Nora's attempts to block them. They brought news of the outside world, of the case against me building, of Harrison playing the devoted single father for the cameras, of my daughter growing up without me. Eleanor had been released from the NICU. She was healthy, thriving, being raised by a man who had never wanted her except as a bargaining chip. I thought about giving up. In my darkest moments, alone in that white room, I considered what it would mean to simply stop fighting, to accept the narrative Harrison had created, to fade away and let him win. But then I would remember Eleanor's face. Those 30 seconds when she lay on my chest, looking up at me with eyes that had seen nothing of the world's cruelty. She needed me, and I would not let her down. So I waited. I played their games, took their medications, said what they wanted to hear, became the model patient who was making such wonderful progress. And one day, Sam brought news that changed everything. She passed me a note during our visit, hidden in a book she claimed I had requested. I read it in my room that night, heart pounding. Vivian is alive. 3 words. Everything changed. The proof was in the pages that followed. Surveillance photographs from the Cayman Islands. A woman matching Vivian's description, seen at a luxury resort. Bank records showing massive transfers to accounts connected to her alleged death. Vivian Cross had faked her own death. She had escaped the plane crash somehow, made her way to the Caribbean, and was watching from a distance as her plan unfolded perfectly. The crash, the frame, the psychiatric commitment, all of it had been orchestrated from a beach in the Caribbean by a woman everyone believed was dead. And there was more. Ted Whitmore, my trusted lawyer, my father's friend. He had been feeding information to the Brennans for 20 years. He had helped structure the fraud. He was the reason my prenup had been so unfavorable. He had never been on my side. The betrayal stung, but it also clarified everything. I knew who my enemies were now, all of them, and I knew what I had to do. I requested a meeting with my doctor the next morning. I am ready to get better, I told him. I am ready to stop fighting the truth about my illness. He smiled, made notes, called it a breakthrough. It was a performance, the best of my life, and it would lead me straight back to Harrison. They released me from Serenity Hills on a Tuesday, conditional release, outpatient treatment, regular check-ins with a psychiatrist who would report on my progress. Sam picked me up in her car. Declan waited at his Vermont house with a room prepared for me. But first, we had a stop to make. Gloria Patterson met us at a diner outside Hartford. She looked older than when I had last seen her. Tired, but her eyes were sharp as ever. "We never stopped investigating," she said, "even after your arrest. The evidence against you never added up. Too perfect, too convenient." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs of Vivian Cross, alive and well in the Cayman Islands, bank records showing the money she had stolen, and a recorded conversation between Ted Whitmore and Nora Brennan, discussing how to ensure Charlotte never gets out of that facility. "Your lawyer sold you out the moment you called him," Gloria said. "He has been Nora's man for decades. The betrayal should have hurt more. Maybe I was beyond hurt by then. Maybe I had simply run out of tears." "What do we do now?" Gloria smiled. The same warrior smile Margaret had given me months ago. Now we set a trap. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Harrison believed he had won. He was riding high on public sympathy, playing the devoted father, talking about his miraculous recovery and the tragic illness of his ex-wife. He was also getting sloppy. The FBI had been building a parallel case this entire time. Financial crimes, fraud, conspiracy. All the evidence Margaret had collected, combined with what Sam had traced through the offshore accounts, painted a damning picture. But they needed Harrison to confess, needed him to say something on record that could not be explained away or blamed on trauma or memory loss. They needed him to admit the truth to someone he trusted completely. Someone like his vindicated ex-wife, released from psychiatric care, seemingly broken and defeated. Someone like me. The visiting room at Serenity Hills had been reserved for our reunion. Harrison believed he was coming for a welfare check on his mentally ill ex-wife, a show of compassion for the cameras, the devoted father checking on the mother of his child. I sat in a plastic chair, wearing the shapeless clothes they provided, my hair unwashed, my face pale, looking every inch the broken woman he expected. He arrived with a smile and a bouquet of flowers, always the performer, always aware of who might be watching. Charlotte, he sat across from me, concern painted on his features. You look better. The doctors say you are making progress. I am, I said softly. I am learning to accept what happened. He leaned forward, all sympathy and understanding. And what is that? That I was confused, that the stress of pregnancy, the crash, it all made me see things that were not there. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. I knew you would understand eventually. You were always a smart woman, Charlotte. Even if you used that intelligence against yourself for a while. I nodded, playing my role, looking down at my hands in my lap. I just wish I understood, I said. Why you and Vivian? Why you needed to hurt me? Was I really that bad of a wife? Harrison laughed softly. He was so confident now, so certain of his victory. You were a perfect wife, he said. That was the problem. Too perfect. Too trusting. Do you know Vivian spotted you at a charity gala years before I even met you? She said you were exactly what we needed. Smart enough to be useful, naive enough to be controllable. So it was all planned, from the beginning, from before the beginning. He shrugged. Vivian chose the restaurant where we had our first date, the ring I proposed with, even the prenup that Ted made sure you signed without reading carefully enough. You were a project, Charlotte, a very successful one, until you started asking questions. And the crash? Bad luck. Harrison's face darkened momentarily. We were supposed to land safely, establish our new life in the Caribbean. Let everyone think we were dead, but the storm came out of nowhere. The pilot panicked, and suddenly I was crawling out of wreckage with no idea if Vivian had survived. But she did survive, he smiled again. That cold, empty smile I had learned to recognize. Vivian always survives. She is in the Caribbean right now, watching everything unfold, laughing probably. She loves it when a plan comes together. And Eleanor? My voice cracked on my daughter's name. What happens to her? Harrison stood, straightening his jacket. Eleanor will be fine. She will grow up wealthy, privileged, with a father who knows how to succeed. Maybe when you are better, really better, I will let you visit her occasionally, if you behave. He headed for the door, then turned back with one last twist of the knife. You know, Charlotte, this never had to happen. If you had just stayed blind, stayed grateful, stayed the good girl I married, you could have had everything. The house, the money, the child. All you had to do was not look too closely. He opened the door. But you had to be clever. You had to dig. And now look where clever got you. He walked out, and I smiled, because beneath my shapeless clothes I was wearing a wire. An FBI special agent, Gloria Patterson, had heard every word. The arrest happened live on television. 47 million people watched. I know because Sam told me later. She said it was the most viewed live news event since the royal wedding. But in that moment, standing in the doorway of Serenity Hills, I was not thinking about ratings or viewers or viral moments. I was thinking about Eleanor. Harrison was leaving the facility, waving to the cameras he had called himself, always performing, always aware of the audience. He had worn his best suit for this visit. Navy blue, Cartier cufflinks. The grieving husband visiting his troubled ex-wife. The compassionate father ensuring his daughter's mother was receiving proper care. He never saw them coming. The first black SUV pulled into the parking lot at 11:42. I remember the time because I was watching the clock on the wall behind me, counting down the seconds until I could stop pretending. The second SUV had arrived 30 seconds later. Then the third. Harrison's smile flickered. Just for a moment, I saw him calculating, trying to understand what was happening, why federal vehicles were surrounding him on what should have been a simple publicity visit. Gloria Patterson stepped out of the lead vehicle. She walked toward Harrison with the unhurried confidence of a woman who had been waiting 20 years for this moment. Harrison Brennan. Her voice carried across the parking lot, clear and calm and absolutely devastating. You are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, and financial crimes spanning multiple jurisdictions. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The cameras caught everything. Harrison's face cycling through emotions like a broken slot machine. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally the thing I had been waiting 6 months to see. Fear. This is a mistake. His voice cracked on the last word. I am the victim here. My wife is mentally ill. Whatever she told you, whatever she claimed, she is delusional. The doctors here will confirm it. She has been diagnosed with your wife. Gloria interrupted him without raising her voice. The effect was somehow more devastating than if she had shouted. Is wearing a recording device that captured your full confession 47 minutes ago, including your admission that you planned to murder her after the birth of your child, including your admission that Vivian Cross faked her death and is currently residing in the Cayman Islands, including your detailed explanation of the fertility fraud you committed against her. Harrison's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. You might also be interested to know, Gloria continued, pulling out handcuffs that caught the winter sunlight, that your mother, Nora Brennan, is being arrested at this moment at a charity luncheon in Manhattan, in front of approximately 200 of her closest friends. I saw something break behind Harrison's eyes. Your attorney, Ted Whitmore, is being taken into custody at his office. His files have been seized. All of them. Harrison stumbled backward. An agent caught his arm. And Vivian Cross. Gloria smiled. The smile of a predator who has finally caught her prey. Was apprehended at the Cayman Hilton approximately 2 hours ago. She was poolside, drinking a margarita. I am told she did not take the news well. The agent behind Harrison pulled his arms back. The handcuffs clicked into place. The sound was small, metallic, final. And that was when Harrison saw me. I had stepped out of the facility doorway, into the winter sunlight, into the view of the cameras that were broadcasting this moment to 47 million people. I was wearing the shapeless clothes they had given me during my commitment. My hair was unwashed. My face was pale. I looked nothing like the polished corporate wife he had married, but I had never felt more powerful in my life. You. Harrison whispered the word like it was a curse, like it was a prayer, like he still could not believe the broken woman he had discarded could possibly be responsible for his destruction. I walked toward him, slowly, deliberately, letting him watch me approach, letting him feel what it was like to be powerless, to have no control, to know that everything he had built was crumbling around him and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The cameras followed my every step. I did not care. You know Harrison. I stopped close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead, close enough to smell his expensive cologne, the same cologne he had worn on our wedding day. This never had to happen. Charlotte, he tried to smile. That charming smile that had convinced me to marry him, that had convinced juries and boards and investors and everyone who had ever met him. Please, we can talk about this. Whatever they are offering you, I can offer more. Whatever you want, name it. The penthouse, the money, full custody, anything. The smile did not work anymore. It looked like a mask. It looked like what it had always been, if you had just been honest. I continued as if he had not spoken. Just been faithful, just been the man you pretended to be. You could have had everything. A wife who loved you. A daughter who adored you. A life most people only dream of. I leaned closer, close enough that only he could hear me, close enough that the cameras could not catch my words. All you had to do was not be a monster. Harrison's composure finally shattered. I loved you. The words burst out of him, ugly and desperate. I did. In my own way. You have to believe me. Vivian was nothing, a distraction, a business arrangement. You were always the one I came home to. You were always, good girl. He flinched like I had struck him. That is what you called me, is it not? I straightened, letting my voice carry now, letting the cameras hear. Good girl. Every time I did what you wanted, every time I stayed blind, every time I performed the role you had written for me. Good girl. Like I was a dog. Like I was a trained animal doing tricks for treats. Charlotte, please. But here's the thing about good girls, Harrison. I stepped back, creating distance between us. Between the woman I had been and the woman I had become. Sometimes they wake up. Sometimes they realize they were never good. They were just afraid. And when the fear goes away, I smiled. Not his smile, not a performance. My smile. The smile of a woman who had walked through fire and come out the other side. They become something much more dangerous. The agents pulled Harrison toward the SUV. He twisted, trying to look back at me, trying to say something else, trying to find words that could undo what he had done. There were no words. Charlotte, his voice cracked. My voice broke through his composure one final time. Our daughter, Eleanor. You have to let me see her. I am her father. I have rights. You will never see her again. The words came out calm, certain, final. She will never know you. She will never carry your name. She will grow up knowing exactly what kind of man her father was, and she will learn from your example. I watched his face as he processed this. The ultimate punishment. Not prison, not financial ruin, not public humiliation, irrelevance. But you had to be clever, I said, echoing his words from the penthouse. From the night he had threatened to destroy me. You had to scheme, and now look where clever got you. The agents pushed him into the back of the SUV. The door slammed shut. Through the tinted window, I could see Harrison's face. Pale, broken, finally understanding that the woman he had dismissed as an incubator had just ended his empire. Gloria walked over to stand beside me. She paused, searching for words. Extremely satisfying to watch. Thank you, I said, for believing me, for not giving up. Thank you, Gloria replied, for being brave enough to fight back. You know how rare that is? Most women in your position. They take the settlement. They sign the NDA. They disappear. You are the first one who ever wanted justice more than escape. I thought about the photographs Margaret had shown me. 5 women with haunted eyes. 5 women whose lives had been destroyed by the Brennan machine. I was not just fighting for myself. The SUV pulled away, carrying Harrison toward a future he had never imagined. I watched until it disappeared around the corner of the facility drive. Then I turned to Gloria. My daughter, I said. Take me to my daughter, Gloria nodded. Already arranged. Social Services is meeting us at the penthouse with the emergency custody order. She paused. Are you ready? I have been ready for 6 months. Then let us go get your baby. The drive to Manhattan took 2 hours. I spent every minute of it watching news coverage on Gloria's phone. Nora Brennan had been arrested at the charity luncheon, just as Gloria had said. The footage showed her being led out in handcuffs past tables of shocked socialites. Her Chanel suit, her perfect hair, her face frozen in an expression of absolute disbelief. She had been mid-speech when the agents entered, talking about the importance of supporting women in crisis. The irony was not lost on anyone. Ted Whitmore had tried to run, actually tried to flee his office when he saw the agents coming. He had made it approximately 15 feet before they caught him. The footage of him being tackled in the hallway of his own firm played on loop across every network. And Vivian. Vivian had screamed. The resort security cameras caught everything. Her poolside arrest, her initial confusion turning to rage, her attempts to claim diplomatic immunity, witness protection, mistaken identity, her final desperate offer of $2 million to anyone who would help her escape. No one helped her. I watched her being led away in handcuffs in a resort bathrobe, mascara running down her face, finally looking exactly like what she was. A criminal, a fraud, a woman whose carefully constructed life had collapsed around her, just like mine had. Except I had not deserved it. We reached the penthouse at 3:47 in the afternoon. The building was surrounded by news vans and reporters. Word had spread fast. Gloria's team had to clear a path through the crowd just to reach the entrance. I walked through the lobby I had walked through 1,000 times before, past the doorman who had always been so polite, past the concierge who had arranged flowers and reservations and all the small luxuries of a life I had never chosen. They stared at me like they were seeing a ghost. Maybe they were. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor took forever. I counted the floors, watched the numbers climb, felt my heart beating faster with each passing second. Gloria stood beside me in silence. She understood. The doors opened. The penthouse looked exactly the same. The furniture Harrison had chosen without asking my opinion. The art that meant nothing to me. The cold perfection of a home designed to impress rather than comfort. But there was one difference now. Eleanor's taste scattered across the pristine floor, a stuffed elephant, a set of stacking rings, a blanket with stars on it that I had bought before she was born, signs of life in a place that had always felt like a museum. The nanny met us in the living room. She was young, early 20s, pretty in the generic way Harrison preferred. Her eyes were red from crying. Mrs. Brennan, her voice trembled. I did not know. I swear I did not know. They told me you were sick. They told me you had abandoned her. I would never have taken this job if I had known the truth. I looked at her, really looked, saw the fear in her eyes, the genuine distress, the relief that was starting to break through as she realized she was not in trouble. What is your name? Jessica. Jessica Miller. Did you take good care of her, Jessica, while I was gone? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I tried. I swear I tried. He was never here. Mrs. Brennan, the old one. She was always criticizing, telling me I was doing everything wrong, but I loved Eleanor. I love her. She is the sweetest baby I have ever... Where is she? Jessica pointed toward the nursery, the room with the pale yellow walls, the room I had painted myself. She should be waking up from her nap soon. I walked toward the nursery. Each step felt like a mile. Each heartbeat felt like a thunderclap. I stopped at the doorway. Eleanor was in her crib. The crib I had assembled myself, following instructions in 3 languages, cursing the hardware, calling Sam for help twice. She was lying on her back, just starting to stir, making the soft sounds of a baby waking from sleep. 3 months old now. 3 months I had missed. 91 days of first smiles and midnight feedings and all the tiny moments that make up a baby's life. Stolen from me. Stolen from both of us. I crossed the room, looked down at my daughter. She had changed so much. Bigger now, her hair darker, her features more defined, but her eyes were the same. My mother's eyes, eyes that held centuries of wisdom in a face that had barely seen the world. Eleanor opened those eyes, looked up at me, and for one terrible moment, I was afraid. Afraid she would not know me. Afraid she would cry. Afraid that 3 months was too long. That the bond we had formed in those 30 seconds after her birth had been severed by time and distance and the cruelty of the man who had fathered her. Eleanor studied my face. Her expression was serious, thoughtful, like she was trying to place me, trying to remember. Then she smiled. Not the polite smile babies give to strangers, not the curious smile of someone encountering things show, the smile of recognition, the smile of someone who had been waiting, the smile of a daughter who knew her mother had come home. I picked her up, held her against my chest, felt her small body relax into mine, like she had never been anywhere else. Hello, my darling, I whispered through tears I could not stop. Mama's here. Mama is so sorry she was gone so long. But Mama's never leaving again. Do you hear me? Never. Eleanor grabbed a fistful of my hair, pulled it toward her mouth, started to chew. I laughed. Actually laughed. Standing in the penthouse that had been my prison, holding the daughter who had been stolen from me, I laughed because she was here. She was real. She was mine. And nothing Harrison or Vivian or Nora or anyone else had done could take that away. Sam found me an hour later. She walked into the nursery, took one look at me holding Eleanor in the rocking chair, and burst into tears. It is over, she said, crossing the room to wrap her arms around both of us. Oh my God, Charlie. It is finally over. I looked at my daughter. at my best friend, at the room I had built for a future I was finally going to have. No, I said softly. It is just beginning. 1 year later, the trial took 4 months. I testified for 3 days, told the whole story from the Christmas Eve phone call to the confession in the psychiatric facility. Watched the jury's faces as they processed the scope of Harrison's betrayal. They deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. Harrison got 25 years. He cried when the verdict was read. Actually cried. The man who had mocked my tears, who had called me weak, who had threatened to destroy me for showing emotion. He stood in that courtroom and wept like a child. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even relief, just emptiness. And then slowly something that might have been peace. Vivian got 30 years. She did not cry. She screamed, cursed the judge, cursed me, had to be dragged from the courtroom by 3 bailiffs. The woman who had orchestrated everything, who had chosen me at that charity gala years ago, who had treated my life like a chess game she was destined to win. She lost. Nora got 5 years in minimum security. She fainted when the sentence was read. Whether it was real or performance, I never knew. With Nora, it was impossible to tell. Ted Whitmore was disbarred and sentenced to 8 years. He tried to apologize to me in the hallway outside the courtroom. I walked past him without a word. Some betrayals are too deep for apologies. After the trial, I sold the penthouse. Every piece of furniture, every work of art, every reminder of the life I had never wanted. I kept 3 things: Eleanor's crib, the rocking chair, and the mobile of silver stars I had hung above her bed. Everything else I let go. We moved to Vermont, a small house near Declan, with a big yard and a vegetable garden and a porch where I could sit and watch the sunset over the mountains. The kind of home I had dreamed about during all those nights in the penthouse, surrounded by luxury that felt like a cage. The money from the divorce settlement went into a foundation. I named it after my mother, the Patricia Murphy Foundation for Financial Independence. We help women recognize the signs of financial abuse. We teach them to protect themselves. We provide resources for those who are ready to leave. Every week, I speak to groups of women. I tell them my story. I show them the red flags I missed, the credit card statements that should have been warnings, the slow erosion of independence that felt like love. And I tell them this: every woman needs to know 3 things about her finances: where the money is, how it moves, and what happens to it if he disappears tomorrow. I wish someone had told me that before I signed my prenup, before I gave up my career, before I became so dependent on a man that I could not imagine surviving without him. But no one did. No one. So I became that someone for others. The foundation has helped over 2,000 women in its first year. 2,000 women who checked their accounts, who asked the hard questions, who built their safety nets before they needed them. Not all of them were being abused. Not all of them needed to leave. But all of them became more aware, more prepared, more powerful. That matters. That is my legacy. 1 year after Harrison's arrest, I am standing on the porch of my house in Vermont, watching Eleanor take her first steps. The morning sun filters through maple trees, casting dappled shadows across the lawn. Birds sing in the branches. The air smells of fresh-cut grass and the tomatoes ripening in my garden. Eleanor stands in the middle of the yard, her chubby legs wobbling beneath her. She has pulled herself up using the garden bench. Now she stands alone, arms outstretched for balance, face scrunched in concentration. "Come on, baby girl," I call softly. "Come to mama." She takes 1 step, wobbly, uncertain, her arms windmill. She takes another step, then another, 4 steps, 5, 6. Her confidence grows with each successful footfall. 7, 8, 9. Then her foot catches on a tuft of grass. She tumbles forward, landing on her bottom with a soft thump. I hold my breath, waiting for tears. Instead, Eleanor laughs. That beautiful full-body baby laugh that makes everything else disappear. She rolls onto her hands and knees, pushes herself up, and tries again. "That is my girl," I whisper, tears pricking my eyes. "You fall down, you get back up. You keep trying until you get there." On her 4th attempt, she makes it all the way to my outstretched arms. I scoop her up, showering her face with kisses while she giggles and squirms. You did it. I spin her around. You walked. My brave, brilliant, beautiful girl. Behind us, applause erupts. Declan and his kids have gathered on the porch, along with Sam and Margaret, who has become a regular presence in our lives. The family I was born with and the family I chose. All of them here. All of them cheering for my daughter's first steps. Did you get it on video? Sam demands. Every second. Declan holds up his phone from 3 different angles. I carry Eleanor to the porch, settling into the rocking chair I brought from the penthouse. The suburban chair that Harrison allowed because it made me happy. He thought he was being generous. He did not understand that he was giving me the one piece of furniture that would survive everything. Now it sits on my porch in my house, part of my real life. Amazing what a year can change. Later that evening, after Declan takes his kids home, after Margaret heads back to her hotel, Sam and I sit on the porch watching stars appear over the mountains. Eleanor is asleep in her room. The monitor sits between us, crackling softly with the sounds of her breathing. You look different, Sam says. Her voice is thoughtful, observant, not just happy, like settled, like you finally fit somewhere. I finally fit in my own skin. I reply, I spent so long being who Harrison wanted me to be, who Nora approved of, who society expected. I forgot who I actually was. And who is that? I think about it, really think. Someone who does not need permission to take up space. Someone who trusts her own instincts. Someone who knows that being alone is not the same as being lonely. And someone who will never again confuse control for love. Sam raises her wine glass. To knowing who you are and refusing to be anyone else. We drink, watch the stars multiply. Let the comfortable silence speak for itself. So, Sam says eventually, her tone shifts. Something lighter, more mischievous. Any thoughts about dating again? I laugh. The idea seems almost absurd. Dating. Sam, I have a 1-year-old. I run a foundation. I am still unpacking trauma and therapy. When exactly would I find time to date? Sam shrugs. I am not saying you have to. I am just asking if you have thought about it. I have. Late at night when Eleanor is asleep and the house is quiet, loneliness creeps in sometimes. I miss being touched, miss having someone to share the small moments with, miss the simple comfort of knowing someone is waiting for you at the end of the day. But I also remember how badly I chose last time, how I ignored every warning sign, how I lost myself so completely in Harrison's shadow that I forgot what my own light looked like. Maybe someday, I say, when I meet someone who loves me for who I am, not who they can turn me into, someone who sees my strength as attractive, not threatening, someone who celebrates my independence instead of trying to erode it. That sounds like a pretty high bar. It should be. I have a daughter now. She is watching everything I do, learning what love looks like from how I live my life. I refuse to teach her that love means shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. Sam nods slowly. That is the best answer I have ever heard. It is the honest one. The next morning is Christmas Eve. 1 year exactly since the phone call that shattered my world. I wake early, make coffee, wrap myself in a blanket on the porch and watch the sunrise paint the Vermont mountains gold. I think about Harrison, sitting in a federal prison somewhere, getting older, getting smaller, becoming exactly what he always feared most, irrelevant. I do not hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy, too much space, too much of the peace I fought so hard to find. But I do not forgive him either. Some things are unforgivable, and that is okay. Forgiveness is not required for healing. Moving forward does not mean pretending the past did not happen. It means refusing to let the past define your future. Harrison taught me things, terrible things, yes, but also valuable ones. He taught me what I do not want, what I will not accept, what I am capable of surviving. I would never have chosen those lessons, but I can still learn from them. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. My grandmother used to say that. She was right. Inside, Eleanor wakes. I hear her through the baby monitor, babbling to herself in her crib. Happy sounds, content sounds, the sounds of a child who has never known fear. I go to get her, lift her warm body from the crib, carry her to the window. Look, I point at the sunrise. See how beautiful? She points too. Pretty, one of her favorite words. Yes, pretty, like you. She laughs and grabs my face for a kiss, slobbery and enthusiastic and absolutely perfect. I hold her close and make a promise, not out loud, just in my heart, where the truest promises live. I will teach you to recognize cages even when they are gilded, to trust your instincts even when everyone tells you that you are wrong, to know your worth even when someone tries to convince you that you have none. I will teach you that storms reveal roots, that endings can be beginnings, that the worst things can become the foundation for the best things if you let them. I will teach you that you are enough, exactly as you are, without performing, without pretending, without ever losing yourself in someone else's story. I will teach you to write your own story, and I will help you make it a magnificent one. Eleanor looks up at me with those knowing eyes, my mother's eyes, centuries of wisdom in a face barely a year old. Mama, she says, yes, baby, I am here, and I am not going anywhere. The sun clears the horizon, golden light spills across the mountains. The sleeping town, the small house that has become more home than anywhere I have ever lived. I hold my daughter close and watch the new day begin. We are going to be extraordinary, I whisper. Both of us, together. And for the first time in my entire life, I believe it completely. 2 years later, a maximum security women's prison in upstate New York. The visiting room is gray, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, the kind of institutional bleakness designed to remind you exactly where you are and exactly what you have lost. Nora Brennan sits at a metal table, waiting. She has aged a decade in 2 years. The Chanel suits are gone. The perfect hair is gray now, pulled back in a practical ponytail. The manicured nails are short and bare. Prison has a way of stripping away pretense. The door opens. A guard escorts Vivian Cross to the table and leaves them alone. Vivian looks different too. Older, harder. The sharp cheekbones are sharper now. The calculating eyes are colder. But something else has changed. She looks patient, like a predator who has learned to wait. The appeals are moving forward, Nora says quietly. Harrison is cooperating with prosecutors, testifying against his suppliers, his contacts, everyone he ever worked with. He might get early release. Vivian's expression does not change. Harrison is weak. He always was. That is why he needed me. And Charlotte? Nora's mouth twists. Happy, settled. She has a foundation now, writes books, gives speeches. The media loves her, the survivor who took down the billionaire. Vivian smiles. It is the coldest smile Nora has ever seen. Good. That is exactly where I want her. She leans forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. Do you know what I have been doing for 2 years, Nora? Besides planning, I have been studying case law, appeal processes, early release programs, good behavior credits. I have become an expert in getting out of places like this. Nora shifts uncomfortably. Vivian, maybe you should focus on, I have also been making friends. Vivian continues as if Nora had not spoken. Do you know how many women in here have connections on the outside? How many of them owe me favors now? How many of them would do absolutely anything for the right price? This sounds like a mistake. Vivian laughs, soft, chilling, the same laugh that once charmed Harrison's father, that once charmed Harrison, that once charmed boardrooms full of powerful men who never saw her coming. The first time was business, Vivian says. Charlotte was a means to an end, a carefully selected target. Nothing personal. She leans back, her eyes gleaming with something that looks almost like hunger. This time it is personal. She took everything from me, my freedom, my money, my future. She stood in that parking lot and smiled while they put me in handcuffs. She thinks she won. She did win. Nora says, it is over, Vivian. Accept it. Rebuild when you get out. Vivian's smile widens. That is what I am going to do. Rebuild. But first, I am going to take apart everything Charlotte Murphy loves, piece by piece, slowly, so she feels every single loss the way I have felt mine. The guard calls that visiting hours are over. Nora stands, gathers her things, walks toward the exit. At the door, she turns back. Just make sure when the time comes that I am not collateral damage. Vivian's smile does not waver. I do not make promises anymore, Nora. I make plans, and I have nothing but time to make sure they are perfect. Nora leaves. The heavy door clangs shut behind her. Vivian sits alone in the visiting room, still smiling. In her cell, hidden inside a hollowed-out law book, there is a photograph. Charlotte Murphy on the cover of a magazine, holding Eleanor, standing in front of her Vermont farmhouse. Every night, Vivian looks at that photograph. Every night, she adds another detail to her plan. She has 7 more years on her sentence, 7 years to prepare, 7 years to build her network, 7 years to become something far more dangerous than the woman who first spotted Charlotte Murphy at that charity gala. The first time Vivian had been careful, patient, strategic. The next time she will be ruthless. And in Vermont, Charlotte Murphy wakes to another beautiful morning. She makes coffee, watches Eleanor play with the dog they adopted last spring, a golden retriever named Honey, who follows Eleanor everywhere like a furry guardian angel. The foundation is growing. A second office opened last month in Boston. A third is planned for Chicago. 2,000 women helped has become 5,000. 5,000 will become 10,000. The book Charlotte wrote has been translated into 17 languages. The documentary about her story premieres next month. The speaking requests come in faster than she can accept them. She is making a difference. Real, measurable, lasting change. But more than that, she is happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not performing happiness for cameras or husbands or society. Just living. Just being. Just existing in a body and a life that finally feels like her own. She does not know that somewhere, in a prison cell, a woman is counting days, planning, waiting, studying photographs and building networks and nurturing a hatred that grows stronger with every passing month. But Charlotte is no longer the woman she was. She is no longer naive, no longer trusting, no longer the perfect victim who ignores her instincts and dismisses her doubts and shrinks herself to fit someone else's expectations. She is the woman who survived Harrison Brennan. She is the woman who brought down an empire, and she is the woman who will serve at whatever comes next. Because some women are made of something that does not break. It bends, it cracks, it scars, but it does not break. Charlotte Murphy is that kind of woman, and God help anyone who forgets it. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they were wearing a mask the entire time? Have you ever ignored that little voice in your gut telling you something was wrong? Have you ever lost yourself so completely in someone else's story that you forgot you had one of your own? Drop a comment below. Tell me your experience. Because sometimes sharing our scars helps someone else recognize their own cage before it is too late. If this story made you feel something, if it made you angry or hopeful or reminded you of your own strength, hit that like button. It tells me you want more stories like this. And if you are new here, welcome to the family. Subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss another story about women who refuse to stay broken. Because next week is going to be intense. We have got a story about a woman who discovered her husband's secret family at his own funeral in front of 300 guests. And what she did next, nobody saw it coming. You are not going to want to miss that one. Until next time, remember this. You deserve a love that tells the truth. You deserve a partner who sees your strength as beautiful, not threatening. You deserve to take up space, to trust your instincts, to write your own story. And you are stronger than anyone who ever tried to break you. See you in the next story.